Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you can hear me okay. There is a little bit of traffic, of course, right then when I want to record, and it's been raining as well, which makes it a little bit louder as well. And right behind me there are people walking, talking into their cameras and stuff like that. Yes, there we go. It's always the way, isn't it? Anyway, I hope you're all doing well. I hope everybody's doing fine and enjoying their weekends. I am kind of. I'm trying to keep it a little bit calm and relax and just do one or two little things like get my hair cut and stuff like that. So I've got to head off to the barber's in a bit. But while I was walking around, there were a couple of things on my mind, and so I thought I would start with what we call Horseshoe Common in Bournemouth, specifically a sculpture that has been put here many years ago regarding what used to be the electric tramway system that was built here in 1906 in Bournemouth. I'm not going to read to you everything that's on this plaque, but what we can say, or what I can ascertain from what's written on here, is the fact that over time it was dismantled, and then all the way through from 1911, abandoned in 1911 to allow the overhead trolley system to run throughout, because they introduced an overhead trolley system. Why wouldn't you? And then through redeveloping of the transport system around Horseshoe Common, that's this area here, in 2014, it was totally abandoned, and to what we have now totally, which is normal bus systems, etc., and the use of roads with, of course, no sign at all of where the tram lines used to be. But again, a good example of a town that absolutely used to use electric power that is sold to us today as being some sort of new, hyper-modern, clean, environmentally friendly technology. Well, no, it's not an idea that's new or anything of the sort. It's something that most definitely has been used in the past, and there are plenty, hundreds if not thousands of other settlements around the world, and around, not in a global sense, the world that show very clearly the use of tramways, electric power trams and such like, either overhead rail systems or whatever. There's a famous one, in fact, in Liverpool that was dismantled in the 50s, 60s, I think, and such like. It was about 5 miles long, and it went all along the waterfront of the River Mersey, for example. There's loads of these things that were found around the world that were dismantled over time, to give us the impression that they never existed in the first place. Well, of course they absolutely did. So I thought I would just bring that to you. The title of this sculpture here is called Tramways, the Electric Idea, and then it has 1902 on one end, 1936 marked on the other, etc. So I just thought that was quite interesting. And these horseshoe shaped things that you see here, they are, I do believe, called yokes, and they were part of the system that enabled the electricity to flow, whatever, I don't know. I'm not an electrician, so I wouldn't know exactly how that technically would work, but that's definitely the case, that this technology was up and running very well. But there you go. I just thought I'd bring that to you. I just walked through that area up there. You won't know if you're not from here, but this is a little sort of park area that we call Horseshoe Common here in Bournemouth. And just beyond it, there's a place called Madeira House and Madeira Place and all that. There's a lot of references to the island of Madeira, which of course belongs to the country of Portugal. It just got me thinking, because there is, of course, if you know your sport a little bit and you're interested in that sort of thing, one very famous person that comes from the island of Madeira, and his name is Cristiano Ronaldo. He is a famous footballer, nearing the end of his career, it's fair to say. He's now in his late 30s, approaching 40. Did play in the European Championships that are still ongoing, the final of which is tomorrow between England and España. And yes, the connection that I made in my mind anyway was the fact that in that final, that said final tomorrow, there will be a 17-year-old boy playing for the Spanish, and his name is Lamine Yamal. And you know, when we talk about nature or nurture, or you know, life imitating art, art imitating life, and how much of the world that we live in is actually already predicted and laid out, you know, and the role that predictive programming plays, for example, on the album covers of bands like Breakfast in America from Supertramp, which was released exactly 22 years before the events that we know as 9/11, and the actual event kind of is depicted on the album cover, so who knew that in advance, etc, etc. Well, Lamine Yamal is an interesting one, because just recently photos have surfaced, and I'll say that with a small s and in inverted commas, of him as a baby, literally as a baby, being bathed in a bathtub by none other than the world's most famous footballer, a guy called Lionel Messi, an Argentinian superstar who at present earns his gazillions in Saudi Arabia, I do believe, but made his name playing for Barcelona and recently winning the last World Cup for Argentina. So I thought that that was a good connection to make, because I mean, what are the odds? And I looked a bit about on the backstory of this guy, the said young fella who's playing tomorrow, Lamine Yamal, and allegedly the photo shoot of this Lionel Messi bathing this baby in a bathtub 17 years ago came about for UNICEF. The photos were taken by a freelance photographer, and the reason why it was that particular baby and not yours or mine babies was because the family won a raffle that was done in the local village where they lived, and it just so happens that they pulled out the number of their family and then they used their baby for the photo shoot. I mean, first of all, what did the baby get out of it? Well, like I said, is that a coincidence that that baby 17 years later, because he turned 17 today, Lamine Yamal, is touted as one of the upcoming absolute superstars of world football? I don't believe that is a coincidence. And if you look at, you know, many other aspects of the entertainment business, of which sport is one of them, no doubt, you'll find that a lot of those acts, 90% I would sort of estimate, were absolutely nurtured and handled right from the get-go, possibly even from birth, or let's say from appearing on the radar as youngsters, however you want to phrase that carefully. So, you know, it then raises questions about the importance of so-called orphanage sort of scenarios and situations. You know, I mean, the more access you have to a pool of people, then the more chance you have of creating a star amongst that pool of people to then utilize to make lots and lots of money, and more importantly, in my view, to help socially engineer and socially condition a public and get them thinking in a certain way. That I would say is particularly prominent, like I say, in the music business, for example, because of course sport isn't as obviously an entertainment business, but it absolutely most certainly is. So I just thought I would leave you, or I'll mention those thoughts that I had on my mind. Isn't that interesting? What are the odds that Lamine Yamal, a little baby, was bathed by the world's greatest footballer 17 years ago, and these photos pop up? Allegedly his dad put these photos up on social media, and it's been sort of kept a little bit quiet. People have found it and talk about it, especially football fans, but generally speaking, it's definitely stayed out of the so-called news, because hey ho, not everybody's that stupid to think, whoa, what a coincidence, are they? Let's face it. And it could wake you up to think, well, if that happens there, where else does that sort of thing happen, right? Just some food for thought, that's all, because like I say, things like predictive programming, in other words, showing people way in advance what's about to happen further down the line, is absolutely a thing. We had it in the London Olympic opening ceremony of 2012. Absolutely, if you go back and have a look at that ritualistic ceremony, you can see very clearly the stuff that is acted out on that stage refers to events that will come years later, very, very clearly. And I'm not just referring to giant-sized Boris Johnsons or kids dancing around on hospital beds or close-up zooms of Asian-looking nurses. And I said that very carefully. Yeah, so I thought I would just mention that to you. I think that's quite interesting. What else would I going to say? That is it really for now in terms of that being on my mind. What I'd like to also say is that on the Tuesday the 30th of July at 1900 hours, there will be the 2nd year anniversary of the Flat Earth Social. It is at the Bridge. It's at the Bridge Hotel in, I don't know if I've even got that right, Ferndown anyway. It's definitely in Ferndown, which is on the fringes of Bournemouth. The Bridge House Hotel, I think it's called. And allegedly Dave will be appearing and, gracing us with his presence to talk about the fourth dimension. So, do come along if you fancy. If you're anywhere near that area, then pop down, say hello, have a couple of drinks. Hopefully the weather won't be as miserable as it is today, because, as you can see through my camera lens, the Earth is melting and we are experiencing global warming at a profuse scale, so much so that I'm wearing a jacket and a hat. Anyway, the 30th of July, Tuesday the 30th of July, 1900 hours at the Bridge House Hotel in Ferndown on the fringes of Bournemouth, starring allegedly Dave Murphy, to talk about the fourth dimension. It's our 2nd anniversary. I say ours because I was there right from the start. I have missed a few in between, but that was due to health issues really more than anything else. So I hopefully will be attending that. It would be a great shame to miss out. I'm just going to think if there was anything else I wanted to say. Oh, there's plenty I want to say, but I'm not going to bore you with it right now. I'll leave it. I'm going to go off to the barber shop and get my hair cut. That in itself is good news for me, because one of the things I can say between you and I and these trees here, that I suffered from pretty badly over the time that I was not very well, was the loss of hair, which never happened in my life, ever. It was a totally new and very weird experience for me. I'm kind of almost doing cartwheels into the barbershop in a bit. Cut it here, cut it there. I'm so chuffed that I now have a decent head of hair that they can work on and give a trim. Yeah, things like that. It was quite scary, to be honest. Not very nice. And while I'm talking about not very nice things, actually, I will say it. I wasn't going to, but I will. But my heart goes out to a couple of close friends of mine. I won't mention their names. They know who they are. If they're watching this video, which I'm sure they will at one point, my sympathies and condolences go out to you. Absolutely. It's terrible news that you've had to endure, losing friends and loved ones, because of the after effects of, what we all plainly know. So I just wanted to mention that you are on my mind, and myself and Sandra, my beloved partner, are thinking of you. And times like these when we have to pull together, because you never know when the next load of nonsense is on its way. Without me wanting to end this video on a downer, but I had my TV on in the background, and they were interviewing. Tour de France cyclists wearing massive face masks the size of their heads, and allegedly a couple of them had gone down and with COVID and had allegedly tested positive, but they were still continuing with the race, which is quite astounding. I know one of them was saying, well, all he knows is he has a bit of a headache and some sniffles. His name is Geraint Thomas. He's a Welsh rider. But yeah, that was quite interesting to see that narrative is being slowly reintroduced. So I thought I would just let you know on that one, something worth keeping an eye on, so you don't get spooked. But we all know what to expect at some point, and we all most certainly know the truth. Anyway, so on that note of conviction, I hope your weather is a bit nicer than mine here in Bournemouth. On that note, as I've just said, I hope to see you all soon. Some of you much sooner. Until then, take it easy. You know, keep those who you love dearly close to you. It's very important. And we'll speak soon. Okay, see you then, and ta-ta for now.